This is episode 72 of the Gauntlet podcast. My name is Jason.
I'm Lowell.
And I'm Rich.
Awesome. So, Lowell, right now you're running Legacy, Life Among the Ruins for Gauntlet Hangouts, which is very cool. Rich and I are in that game as well, but you want to go ahead and give us just like an overview of what Legacy is?
Legacy is a PBTA post-apocalyptic game, but with a couple of big differences from Apocalypse World and some of the other ones that have taken this on. It's much more Numenera-esque in that it can be an alien world or it can be a sort of a weird far future world. We've got tech and strangeness and lots of lost artifacts. The game is at a much different level than Apocalypse World, which is much more about the character relations and that sort of central setup community.
Right, yeah.
In Legacy, you have two different playbooks. You have a family playbook, which defines sort of the community, and everyone should have a different one, and then a character playbook. And the idea is that you are kind of the important person or an important person within your family. Mm-hmm. So you make decisions for that family, and that means that the family has moves, and they have moves that work at that sort of higher meta level. And then you've got your character, and they do things, and it operates. They have moves that interact with that in terms of making treaties sometimes and alliances, but then they also have classic personal moves involved with it.
Yeah, so how do you think it's going so far? Like, what are your kind of initial thoughts? We've done, what, about 2 sessions now, I guess?
Yeah, I still really, really like the idea of it, and I feel like there's an interesting game in there, but I'm having some trouble pulling that out from the rules text. We talked a little bit at the end of this last session. We did Roses and Thorns, and we talked about some of the group's questions about it, and since then I've been thinking about what my hesitation as a GM is, and I've gone back to the rules to reread them and kind of come to a couple of conclusions.
Okay.
One of the things is that we've got two very different level operating, of course, and I think that's great. We've got the family and we've got the characters, but I'm not sure that the book does a great job of showing us how those connect together. It doesn't set up any examples of that, for example. It doesn't talk about that. And some of the family moves take a significant amount of time. So are we supposed to move to the family level, do some family moves, and then go back to character levels? How does that work with the different players going on? It's not particularly clear. I also don't think that necessarily that the different character playbooks sync up particularly well. We've got some characters that really feel like they are built to be part of that family playbook framework.
Right.
The elder, the envoy.
Right, yeah.
Even some of the scavenger and some other things, they really, okay, yeah, I can see how this connects. Some of the other ones feel very adventure gamey. The hunter feels very, they've got a task, they want to do that, and
it's a weird tension. Yeah, it really is. I felt that when playing it. Well, so when like you said, you alluded to the fact that we did Roses and Thorns after that last session, and one of the things that everybody at the table was seeming to have a bit of difficulty with, from the player side at least, was what are we actually supposed to be doing? Like, what are the game's goals? And what are we supposed to be angling for? What kinds of scenes are we supposed to be angling for? You know, like you said, you look at those the family playbooks and the moves that are available there. You look at your character playbook and the moves that are available there. And it's a lot of really cool stuff, like taken like individually, like it's really neat. And I like a lot of the concepts and a lot of the different elements. I haven't quite yet figured out how in my brain to like kind of put it together. Because like I've got this character who is, she's the elder of her family. She's really, really like focused on high level stuff related to her family, right? And like you said, we've got these other characters in the story who are like, yeah, they seem like you said, like more classic adventurer types. And it's like a little unclear, like how we're supposed to intersect, like how do the families intersect, like how do these like hunter, more lower level type guys from their families, like how do their family moves come into play? You know, like it was challenging. Rich, what do you think?
I was there with you. I actually felt like your elder made a lot more sense, as Lowell pointed out earlier. The elder is a playbook that seems integrated well into the family. I played a hunter, and Like, the family was just trappings. It was just something that was a kickstart to get me out there hunting. I was really lost because there's like 4 different sheets worth of moves on different levels, right? That was the thing that kind of blew me away. It's yes, you can play on the family level. Yes, you can play on the character level. But while you're playing the character level, does the family play a part of it? Should you be using the family moves? Should you be using the character moves? Do I use the basic character moves or the basic family moves? Or my custom family moves or my custom character moves? There's so many moves.
Yeah, like you said, I felt like my connection to my family playbook made a lot more sense to me because I'm operating at a high level as a character already within the family, so it kind of makes sense that I control the family. But yeah, you're right. Like it was a little unclear. Like, but even then, like I wasn't sure how to interact with like you guys. You know, like I really understood what I was supposed to be doing in the confines of my family, but I wasn't really sure how I was supposed to be interacting with you guys. So it was yeah. Anyway, sorry, Lo, go ahead.
No, I was going to say. So one of the things I have to say, and we have to point at, is as a GM, I looked at that material and I made a very particular choice. I'm going to start all of you together so that we can get some roles, so we can see how the thing plays, and then get you into a place where there's more political stuff going on, which meant that I've kind of locked us down in time and scene because we've only got 2 real sessions of play.
Right, yeah.
So I wanted to kind of start that way because I looked at the other option. The other option is, all right, Rich, you're in your encampment, and Jason, you're in your encampment, and here's the threat, and what are you going to do, and what does your family need? Maybe that would work. But then I think that for people who've built kind of a little more on-the-ground character, okay, well, I'm going to go hunting. Okay, it's weird.
Yeah, because you could have like one character who's like, okay, well, I'm going to go out, hunting this thing or that thing. But you have another character who could be like, I'm going to make my family, we're going to start war. We're going to have a war with these people over here. Like there's a lot of levels there, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that are implied or suggested in the text that aren't fully explained. It isn't until, there's several things that don't get explained until later in the GM section. There's an admonition that the players will play to answer the desires and needs of their family, but it doesn't talk about that. And I find that really frustrating. And I've seen it in some other PBTA games where there's a lot of assumptions made about how much PBTA is known, or in this case, that you'll just get how the structure plays. And I'm going to say something, and I mean this it's going to sound harsh, but one of the things I think that this game really could have benefited from is blind testing. That it needed to go out to people who would hit the text and give replies based on just the text itself, because there's a very small list of playtesters at the beginning of it. So I kind of suspect that it didn't go through that process. If it did, then something fell down in that, because it feels like a game that really needs to have gotten a couple of more feedback things and somebody to say, look, when we come at this game, we're not sure what's going on with these things, because there's a lot of really cool pieces in it.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it, right? Like, I was super excited to play this game, and I'm still excited.
Yeah.
I should say, we haven't talked about our story much, but I love my character. I love my character. I love my family. I really dig everybody else's character too. Like, it's all really cool. Like, the world building was super fun. Mm-hmm. It was just like, we kind of got all that. We got all the world building done, and then we just started to have like some weird questions. Like, well, now what? It kind of felt like that a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because it's cool shit. Like, the playbooks are really cool. The family moves are cool. I'm looking at it. I haven't read the text, so I can't comment on that part of it. But just from reading the playbooks and the materials, it's a lot, but it's neat. Like, it's really, really neat. I want to make it work,
Well, and of course, we hit the one big thing that we hit is that there is no basic information gathering move.
Oh yeah, that was an odd feature, I thought.
Yep.
Yeah, but I wonder if is that supposed to tell us something? Like,
well, and that's what I wondered but we've got some information gathering moves in particular character playbooks. Like, for example, the lawgiver, he can go and look at a scene of violence and know everything about it. Okay, well, if that's a particular move, that suggests to me that in other cases, when you go to look at something, you don't get all the information. And some other people have rolled informational moves. Is it that each character has a very particular kind of thing they can pick up information on, or are we just missing something? Because there's definitely informational move at the family level, but that takes time. I mean, you have to send people out.
The family level is not like granular beat by beat moments, right? It's like a little zoomed out, right? Like the sort of stuff there.
And if everybody were just working on the family level, I think you could work with the sort of time distortion that you've got with people doing different things and different amounts of time being required. But when you've got the character level and the family level, I think that would be more difficult to negotiate in play. I mean, and I'm saying that not having really done more than the one session of running, but this is my first impression.
Wasn't it David? We were playing with David, two Davids, two other Davids as well, apart from the three of us.
We doubled up on the David.
We did. We doubled up on Davids. My mother always told me that, by the way. Always double up on your Davids. I don't know what that means. So, no, one of the Davids brought up the fact that, maybe it's meant to be like a Night Witches thing. Like you have phases, like so first we do some individual stuff, but then we have a phase where we do the family stuff. But if that's not clear from the text, then you can't just like make a move like that,
Yeah, I don't see anything that goes, okay, you do this, and then you move to this, and then you move back and forth. The only phase thing is that once a problem has been solved, a threat that's facing everybody, then the ages turn. And you make some rolls to see how your family survives over the next passing of time, and apparently make up a new character.
That kind of like undermines the like whole character flavor part of it a little bit.
And there's especially because it's not like, okay, we're going to make up a character, that was easy. No, it's a Paramount of the Apocalypse. We're going to make up
it takes a little while. Yeah.
It took us a session and a half.
Yeah,
we didn't goof around.
Yeah, well, because we did like you're not just setting up one thing, right? You're setting up two things. You're setting up like you do the normal, like, okay, set up all the characters. How do you know each other? Background, history, all that. But then you have to do the families and the map. And that was super fun. Like I actually really quite enjoyed that. It was great fun. I loved it. And the world we created is like really salient to me. Like it really, really sings to me. I like it a lot. I'm pretty sure the author of the game listens to the podcast, so maybe he'll chime in, on this and kind of maybe like help clarify some things for us based off this conversation, because I think there's a really cool game here. I
absolutely, because I love stuff that works at that higher level, especially stuff that potentially has better flow. Rich and I have talked about this. He doesn't care for Microscope or Kingdom, games that I really enjoy.
I love those too. Yeah, I like those a lot.
Because of the break of flow, and I can understand that. And so I was hoping that this would maybe solve some of those problems, but I haven't seen that quite yet.
Yeah. Well, do we have any closing thoughts from you? I mean, I've said everything I want to say. Like, Rich, do you have anything else you want to throw in there?
I'm with you. Like, if I saw some people play this and rock it out, it might make a lot more sense.
It sounds like what we're just looking for is an extended example of play.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we've got one more session, and we may revisit this on the show and kind of see how our thoughts have changed after we have another full play session of it. I'm anxious to, next time, I'm really anxious to get some of the more of the like higher level family stuff going, just to see how that kind of works. We were really like kind of terrestrial level in our first session.
Yeah,
I'll be curious to see how kind of some of that stuff goes. But Lowell, do you have anything else you want to say about it, or?
No, I think you're right. I think what we're probably going to do is set it up so I can make kind of a jump cut to players back connected with their families and making decisions based on the threats that they're seeing. Because I've got those in play now, and we can get some of those things going, I think, better.
Cool. Awesome. Rich, how's Wandering Monster High School going?
We just finished the 4th of 5 sessions of Wandering Monster High School. I had a great week in that I had 2 different game sessions with David involved, David of Discern Realities.
Okay.
So that was
cool,
fun. Yeah. David wasn't involved in the first 3, which was neat to see him create a student. So Wandering Monster High School elevator pitch is imagine random monsters from a fantasy D&D type world, except they have to go to a fantasy high school. David created an erudite zombie named Gur Roddington. He was he was of the Yorkton Roddingtons, and he was a transfer student. So of course he was picked on mercilessly for like the entire first scene, which was great. And I was able to pull from the book some of the characters. There are some brilliantly written, interesting, like, dashes of color of NPCs, like a couple sentences, more than enough to springboard off of without locking you into a particular character type. And so those NPC teachers are just splendid. And one of the things that I did, because David came in, we're 4 sessions in, everybody's started to settle into their characters, and one of the things I love most about Wandering Monster High School that I really wish more games had baked in is that not everybody created 4 goals, but ostensibly you're supposed to create 4 goals for your character around the idea of a social goal, a treasure or like item goal, like you want to win the championship slam ball trophy or steal a thing, a relationship goal, which is often I want to date cool person X or Y, and then an achievement goal, which is often school related, right? So you got 4 different goals. Most people did a couple, which with a 5 session, that's perfectly fine. And the approach that I took to this session is I had a couple of timed events that I knew I could slide in if I wanted to. But I started off just open and said, okay, here are the goals. Here are the things that we did last session leading up to now. What are the goals that each of you want to pursue?
Okay.
And then we just mapped it out from there. It was not a very hard, Rich has a plan of these things are going to roll us into scenes and roll us into conflicts. I had a couple of ideas that I could pull if I needed to throw something at them, right? A bang or two.
Right,
but primarily, yeah. I mean, and I think this is very similar to the 3-5-7 technique that you've talked about.
Yeah. It sounds really familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, so I basically just, like, heard what you said, misremembered it, did it differently, and now I'm claiming it all on my own. But asking them their goals and just charting it out from that point and letting it generate the scenes, using the book's very interesting characters, the characters that we've created along the way, and just tying things back into each other. It was all
cool.
A really good jam session. So it was some great fun play. I really enjoy this.
That's
game.
awesome. Yeah, it's 7-3-1.
I gave you far too much credit. It's 7-3. I thought it was like 2-5-7-3.
Yeah, I got a few extras in there. No, that's cool. I love it. I've been actually doing that myself a lot lately. Something similar where at the start of the session, I do something similar where I kind of ask the table before we get going, even if we're picking up off a cliffhanger, I kind of ask the table, like, where do you see this going? Like, what do you think is going to happen? What do you envision happening? Right. And I share my own thoughts too. Like, this is what I think is going to happen. And I find that helpful. I find it helpful as a sort of like pre-road mapping things out a little bit, but with the understanding that we're not going to be married to it necessarily. So
yeah. Like at one point, someone said, "Oh, it'd be cool if we had a dance here." And I know I've got this championship trophy thing, and I said, those are great ideas. I'm not sure if we're going to get to it this time, but let's start angling towards that. Maybe that's where we end it with our 5th session.
Cool, awesome, sweet, sounds cool. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, thanks.
All right, so I got a chance to run the first of several sessions that we're going to play of Tremulus. Now,
oh right, man, I am really excited. I recently signed up for this and had to drop to join the D&D game with my college buddies.
Right.
So I'm itching to hear about this, man.
Yeah, you and a bunch of other people. Tremulus is one of the more well-known Powered by the Apocalypse games that we have not yet covered in any way. We haven't talked about it on the shows. We haven't, not on Plus One Forward, nothing. And so, the thing about the game is, before I start diving into my overview, I think it's fair to say that Tremulus is like the Powered by the Apocalypse game that kind of gets dumped on a little bit, like kind of in the fan, among fans, it kind of has a bit of a reputation of being like one of the weaker, entries in the as far as the AW hacks go.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I'm here to mostly dispel that today, I think. So here's the thing. Tremulus is a Powered by the Apocalypse Lovecraftian mystery game, okay? Think a bunch of randos, like a newspaper reporter, a hobo, and a dilettante, investigating strange mysteries and, kind of ramping up to, to sort of a final horror thing, right? It's by Sean Preston. It was a pretty big deal Kickstarter when it kickstarted, as I recall. I kickstarted it, and my the first book I got was printed upside down. I got one of the books where all the pages were upside down, so they were backwards and stuff. Yeah, I kept it as a sort of like some sort of collector's item or something. But I eventually got one that's right side up, though. It was a pretty big deal Kickstarter. As I recall, it was nominated for some Ennies one year, so it's a thing. Okay, some of the criticism of Tremulus that's out there in the world is valid, and from my playthrough, I will confirm that it's valid criticism. It has some weird features. It does a few things that I'd frankly just found a little strange. It has a strange emphasis on like physical violence. A lot of like text is devoted to like the rules for fighting and combat and damage and all that kind of stuff. And that's not really a thing in Lovecraft stories, right? That's not really like a theme that is explored much in those games. So, you think of like, Graham Walmsley's very cool book, Stealing Cthulhu, which a lot of other game designers have used as kind of a springboard for designing their own sort of mythos-based games. And that's one of the things that he points out. It's like, violence or even direct evidence of violence is not really a thing. That's too on the nose for these stories. And so I thought that was weird.
Well, actually, Jason, you're a little wrong. Haven't you ever read the strange case of Charles Dexter Ward and his shotgun?
His shotgun that he found rummaging through the general store? No.
Yeah. Is the combat particularly granular?
No, it's not. I mean, it's a little abstract like all other Apocalypse World combat. In fact, it seems like it's lifted directly from, AW or Monster of the Week. Like, it's got that same vibe, right? You can take about 6 harm before you die. Weak attacks do 1 or 2 harm, and then it goes up, right? Mm-hmm. It's very much that.
Okay.
There's a harm move. So if you take harm, you have to roll a move and add the amount of harm that you took, and that does some bad things to you. Pretty standard AW stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It just seems like funny that like that was just lifted directly from Apocalypse World without any thought for like like Lovecraftian mystery. So I don't know, I just thought that was weird. Another thing, the game has an emphasis on wealth and your ability to purchase things, which I find funny. It feels a little too much like a Cthulhu board game to me in that way. So that was kind of weird. It has a few little strange mechanics. For example, gear has moves. Like some of your gear like has like actual like text moves that you roll dice for, or like if you put on your hat you get +1 affinity, or if you put your glasses on you get +1 reason. Like it's strange, right? It's a little weird. These are all criticisms that people have been laying at the feet of Tremulus for a long time, and they're all valid. I didn't find any of it distracting, if I'm being honest. It's just odd, right? It doesn't seem like it fits the formula, right? Another thing that's kind of strange is the poke around move, which is basically the game's information gathering move, kind of like a Discern Realities. You could just keep rolling it. Like you could explicitly roll it multiple times in the same location. And one of the fail conditions is that the GM can say, okay, well, there's nothing else to find. Rather than just like rolling once and getting some hold to spend to ask questions, like you just could roll it over and over. That's a bit strange. So those at the outset, those are some weird things. There are a few aspects of the game that we didn't get to see and play yet because we've only done one session. And so I'm still I'm on the fence about what I think about them. There's like some stuff to do with clues. There's each of the characters has a lore move, which is kind of like a special move or a sex move like in the other games. There's also like separate tracks for harm and sanity. We haven't tried any of that out yet, so I'm not going to say anything about it. But those other things, though, yeah, those are just some weird little oddball things that stuck out to me. But here's the thing. I actually did like quite a lot in the game. The procedure that the book lays out for creating like a framework for your mystery is quite good. And I enjoyed doing it. It was fairly fast. And it was helpful. Like I was relying on that framework throughout the session. Like it was at hand and it was functional and I thought it was really good. Also, it does this thing that initially I thought I was going to dislike, but in play I actually ended up liking it quite a bit, which is on some moves, instead of the GM making a hard move right away on a miss, you can take a hold. The GM can get a hold, and then you can spend the hold to do your hard move like in the future, like when it might make more sense in the fiction. And I actually liked that. I thought that was really good. Honestly, it felt a lot like some of my own little homebrew stuff for Dungeon World, right? Like I have a lot of like my own custom moves and stuff that functions in a similar way. And so I felt really comfortable with that. And I got a chance to even use it a couple times in the session. And it was good. Like, because, I had this justification for being able to make a hard move later on. And by announcing that I'm spending the hold, like the players know, like, okay, this is the blowback from my miss earlier, right? So I like that. I thought it was good. It was a nice like pacing tool for the GM. And, just kind of overall, we had fun. Like, we had a really, really good time. The basic moves are perfectly functional. Most of the playbook moves, as far as I can tell, the ones that at least we had in play, were perfectly functional. They worked fine. They did precisely what they were supposed to do. On the one hand, there's the seasoned PBTA player in me that looks at some of the stuff and says, that's a little odd. Why did you choose to do that? That's a little weird. But at the end of the day, we had a really good time. It all worked fine. I can't ding it. I mean, that's kind of my feeling on it. And I hope that holds up. Like, I hope I continue to feel that way, especially after we discover some of those other mechanics. We use some of those other mechanics.
Cool. I really feel like, this is much more your jam than my jam. Like, I don't really like Cthulhu anyway, so that's one of the reasons why I stayed away from Tremulus. But it's cool that it's functional, that it's fun. I know that Martin Ralia wrote up a pretty extensive report on his blog that he came around on Tremulus after initially not liking it, and now he thinks it's a pretty great game.
I honestly stayed away from it because several people had really harshly dismissed it when I'd spoken with them about it.
I remember when it first came out, and in Houston Gauntlet, in our face-to-face group, it was a hot topic, right? Like, we never played it. We never managed to get it on the calendar, but I think we did once, and then we had to cancel it for some reason. But, but we all had it, and our assessment of reading the text was, this is not good. Like, has this guy ever even played Apocalypse World? That was kind of like our sort of like snobby assessment of the book initially. And so, I stayed away from it. And also that combined with like what was a fair amount of negative feedback that other people were giving on the game. I made that triage decision of, there's a bunch of other games I want to play, and I can set this one aside because I think it may not be for me, And in fact, I have lots of other Lovecraftian Cthulhu games that I love, and I'm a big fan of games like that. And so, I've got these other games. Why would I even bother with this one? But I'm glad I played it. I'm really, really glad I played it. We had a good time. I think that the door is still wide open for a Lovecraftian PBTA hack. I really do. Like, I think there's still room for another one, only because this game feels like just kind of almost like direct translation of Apocalypse World. Like, it doesn't feel like a lot of specific Lovecraft touches have been put in there, like it doesn't feel like that really. But I guess it just goes to the strength of the basic system, underlying it, because it works. I mean, I can't say it doesn't work, because it does. Like, it worked. And I'm a big fan of mystery and investigation games, and I had a really good time with this. But that's all I wanted to say about it. So, Lowell, you want to give us an update on Mutant Year Zero?
This last Friday was the first chance I had to run Mutant Year Zero, and this is a more modern version of a classic, a post-apocalyptic Gamma World-esque game. In it, the world has fallen. It may have been somewhat in the future. You're in this Ark community. All of you are mutants. There are no children. You can't quite remember how everything happened, and actually there's a meta story that goes with that. You're trying to survive. The world outside is terrible and awful, and it's a game that has a lot of trad elements combined with a lot of things it's taken from more indie developments and a lot of structure that's written that way. And the players were super excited. They had enjoyed the process of making the characters, and everybody had gone to the Pinterest board, and we all hunted things down. And I had a post-apocalyptic Spotify list that a couple of players caught it when I had the Escape from New York music pop up at one point. And they actually came in. I didn't have to go, okay, let's all remind each other of our characters. They held on to those. Everybody wanted to kind of look at the camp again and the map that we'd drawn. And the thing that I had been hopeful about when I talked about this with you last time, about the projects, the things that you do to advance the camp, oh, they loved it.
Oh, good. Yeah, that sounded like the most fun to me.
We spent a long time walking through all the possible projects and what was involved with those and how they could build up the points, and they went back and forth and talked about it, and finally they settled on they want to do this museum, and so they did all this work, and then they were like, well, because we're kind of in this old Wisconsin like campsite that and there's probably like fishing stuff, so we're going to make a fishing museum, and they described all the fish hooks hanging around, and it's super primitive, and they got into that. One of the other things the game does is it says the only prep you really do, besides kind of looking over things, is you've got a set of these threat cards or a threat table, and you pull one at the start of the session, and you can have the players pull it or you can pull it, and that's what happens. And so that's a starter, and okay, there are these zone cultists. Okay, I'm going to do something with zone cultists. And that ended up leading to them going out into the zone, which has a kind of a hex crawl element, because there's random encounter tables and things. The players loved it, because I said, I'm going to roll on the random table. And they were all like, ooh, because I never do that. Never,
right.
ever.
Sounds like you had certain types of players there.
Yeah, they're they improvise and play. We don't go from those things. They went out and they had a fight, because I wanted to get them into a combat situation. A lot of them got to use their particular skills. For me, as a GM, the best part of this. And I have to go into some mechanical talk right now. So, in this game, you use D6s. You've got stats, and they can go from 1 to 5. You've got skills, they can go from 1 to 5, but they're usually going to be like 1 or 2. They're going to be really low. And then you've got gear, and like a bow might give you 2 gear dice. So they do that. And you've got these 6-sided dice. They have different colors to represent each of those. And you make your pool up. So you might have like 7 or 8 dice. And you roll, and if you get a 6 on any one of those dice, which is a little rad symbol on them, then you succeeded. It's a die pool. All you need is 1 success. But each additional success gives you more cool stuff you get to do. Picks like from Apocalypse World, you get to do damage and knock them down and take stuff from them and all that stuff. So you roll it and you look at it, and then you have the option of pushing your luck, of pushing the roll. Because if you didn't get a 6, or you didn't get as many 6s as you want, you can pick up all the dice that aren't 6s and aren't 1s and re-roll those.
Okay.
And then the problem with this is then you get all those 6s you get now are successes, but you take a point of damage for every 1 that's now showing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So here was the best part. Like the first big roll out of the gate, my wife Sherry, she rolls and she does, okay. She goes, well, I'm going to push it. And she picks up all her dice and she rolls and she gets like 5 6s and no 1s. And okay. And that set the stage so everybody else wanted to do that. So everybody else was pushing their rolls. So they get out into the zone and they're pushing their rolls. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you take damage on your stat, on your strength. And they're like, well, how I've taken 2 points of damage on my strength. My strength is 4. Now it's 2. Now I'm only rolling 2 dice when I do any kind of strength-based things. And if I lose 2 more points, I'm dead, And they're all realizing just how dangerous this game is and how it is. And it's got a resource spend to heal. So you want to get your strength back, you got to eat food. And you don't have very much food. You've got to do other things to get food. If you want to heal other stats, you got to drink water. You got to track that. And like right towards the end of the first fight, I could see them all going, oh dear. Oh, holy cow. We're all going to die out here. But they figured it out, and they started to play smarter, and they made some choices about things. And then the game has a set of artifact cards for treasure, and I get to draw random artifacts and hand it to them, and then they get this cool card with a thing on it, and they got like a hockey helmet, and they put it on the dog that they have, to protect the dog, and there are a lot of just really good, fun things about it. But it is a game that is super dangerous. If you push your roll, you have a chance of getting a new mutation. That's awesome, right? okay, yeah,
Yeah.
you get a new mutation points. The problem is that every time you get a new mutation, one of your stats goes down by 1. And you only have like 12 points worth of stats, and you don't ever get them higher. There's no experience raise for buying your stats up in this game.
Okay, yeah.
So you will eventually kill yourself that way. Some super fun things in there.
Yeah, it's cool. It seems like it's a it seems like it's got like an interesting mix going on of like it's sort of like trad roots, but like with a few little bells and whistles, which is kind of cool. Yeah.
I was surprised how much they bought in and how much they liked the mechanics, even for how much it was a trap in some ways.
Right, yeah. Cool. Oh, is there anything else you want to say about it?
No, I don't think so.
All right, awesome. Rich.
Yes.
Tweaks. What is Tweaks?
Tweaks is a game I've run one of 2 sessions. Lowell was in that group, so Lowell, if you have stuff to throw in, feel free. This is one of those. Remember that when I go through 8,000 different entries Drive Through RPG?
Yeah. You drive through.
I got this game when it was on super sale. I got it for 76 cents.
Okay.
It's gone back up. It is now $1.
Okay.
Tweaks is from RAR I'm a Monster Publishing, which is one guy, Charles Fleming. It's a near future kind of hackers style RPG, but the player characters have gone through body modification. It basically installed a cybernetic wear, kind of 0.1 alpha wear body mods into themselves to enhance their hacking abilities. And that's put them on a supreme level, because it's supposed to be like modern day or maybe day after tomorrow type setting. So you imagine that somebody who's got a computer literally wired into their brain, they're amazing at what they want to do.
Cool.
So because they're rare, there are government agencies, there are other tweakers, or tweaks, who are jealous and worried about their rep as other tweaks or hackers. And there are weird things on Cybernet that are embodied. And when you're going into that virtual reality, like physically going into the Cybernet, then that can be a little hairy. It's part of a series called cyber.net.ica, Cybernetica. RAR I'm a Monster Publishing, they have not only released this game, but then there's a companion game that uses the same system that I'll talk about in just a minute. He also has a Tunnels and Trolls version of this game.
Okay.
He just recently released a black hack version of the game, kind of all...
Okay. Like everyone is, yeah.
Yeah, and he has a soundtrack of, like, I think 10 different MP3s you could download. So this is very present in his mind. He's designing all kinds of little entry points into this kind of Cybernetica world, which I think is really neat.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's a different approach, right? Like, you don't often see game designers like designing in that direction. Like, I have this setting I like, I'm going to apply it to a bunch of other systems, right?
Right. Like, normally you do a 300-page book and kickstart it for a buku of money.
Right, yeah.
But here it's like, hey, I'll try it with this system, and I'll try it with this system, and it's all based around this idea, which I think it's infected his brain, right? He's totally obsessed with this. And the releases are over the span of months, years. So this is a thing he's been developing for a while. I think that's neat. Tweaks, it uses the D4 core system. It is an 8-page book. It's a 7-page book if you take off the title page.
Okay, all right.
It's a quick system where the player rolls a pool of 4-sided dice and adds them up and compares them against one of the attributes that they're challenging. If they roll over their attribute, then the GM says what happens. If they roll under, they succeed. Right? Pretty basic stuff.
It's standard. Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward.
When you take damage, if you take physical damage, you take hits to one of your attributes. If you take damage in the Cybernetica, then your brain's attribute gets hurt. So that's kind of the walkthrough of Tweaks. I love that it's $1.
Okay.
So all in all, the Tweaks game as a system is pretty neat. The thing that I was most happy with when we played it was I didn't have a premise, right? And maybe I should have. Maybe I had something for people to glom onto, but I was still just trying to explore it and I had a few nascent ideas, but I wanted to see what the characters were before I really settled on something. And it's in Gauntlet City. This is a Gauntlet City Limits game. And what was great was I had Jason, who's been in several of the GCL games, and Lowell, who's been in a number of them. And, they had their neighborhoods, because when you come in and play, you create a neighborhood. So their tweaks were all from that neighborhood. And what was neat was everybody decided that looking at, because there's a money list, you roll for money, and like the most you can get is $400 and you use that just to buy your modifications, right? It's not to buy a car or whatever. Right, you can buy weapons because there's combat rules. Because
role-playing game, right?
But everybody made their characters very desperate, which I found interesting because I guess it was just I see very little money, so now I'm going to make them desperate. And I thought that was a neat. Like I wouldn't necessarily have said that's where you should make your character.
Rich, not just very little money, like $23 to our name, or or 18. Fair.
Scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like in my head, I thought it was just the money you had to buy your upgrades, right? But yeah, you're right. It communicates a great deal when you're scrimping and saving to have a few benefits. Jason's character was a squatter. Fraser Simons joined us, and he played a character who was transient as well. He was basically sitting in a condemned place. David, his character Max, she was pretty much just like shacking up with her girlfriend so that she had a place to stay. And Lowell, tell us a bit about Ringo, because I thought your character was pretty interesting.
My character is interesting, but I have to kind of actually poke at myself and my decisions I made there. So I went in and went, okay, cyberpunk. And we're clearly, doing a run. And I'll make the brute just because the way my character rollout was. And I think given that it actually has more of a kind of a hacker's feel, that kind of sense to it, I don't think doing a classic hitter character was a great fit for what the game is. And I think that was kind of a bad choice on my part. I've got some cool stuff in my backstory, but that's all stuff I kind of thought of as we were playing. That I didn't get to the table, but there's some very cool stuff. I will say that the randomness of character generation that it has in terms of the stats and the money definitely gives you that. Oh my God, we are at the risk of at the whims of fate here when we play.
Yeah, I think you're being a little harsh on yourself, Lowell. I should have asked more questions. So just give an example, Jason. So I decide Ringo's is Lowell's character.
Okay.
Right? And he lives in a basement apartment. And I think, hey, I haven't brought him in a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to tie him into this idea I have. Someone knocks on his door. He opens it up. There are three guys, and they threaten him. And one of them tries to make a move on him. He basically slams the guy in the face, shoves him back, closes his door.
Goes back to what he's doing. So
goes exactly back to what he was doing because he was. I knew that he was a little bit on the fried side.
Right.
I think
sounds like it.
Because did he have any?
And that's the reason that he's fried is he got bad enhancements. Is my thinking is that's part of his reaction problems is that he's got these implants. They're first generation. They're pretty terrible. And so he's got brain damage. And so that was sort of in my head there. I was also kind of playing him. I had seen this movie called He Never Died with Henry Rollins.
I don't know that one.
It was just on Netflix, and the character there is just kind of living in an apartment, and somebody comes in the door, and he just beats them up and goes back to what he's doing. And I was very much had that in my head nice. When that scene happened.
Nice.
At least two different players said that was the highlight of the game for unexpected thing happening. But I think where you're saying, Lowell, there was a bit of dissonance. I didn't know how to approach the character at that point. I didn't know how to like draw him in. He's so opaque. Like we talked afterwards. I'm really excited about where we're going to kick off with the next session, and I'm glad that we had that conversation. But I found Ringo a lot more fascinating when you explained what was going on, and that's again where I say I could have asked more questions and tried to understand. I was dealing with face value and just riffing off what you were giving rather than trying to probe a little bit more. And that's
I'll split the difference with you on that for blame.
Okay, very well. I will take that. Things that I need more time with, the starting money for PCs is pretty low, just like you pointed out, Lowell. In fact, at the end, we talked about that. That was one of the thorns of like, there's some cool system here, but we're not going to get to play with it in 2 sessions. So I gave the players $500 more, which...
Almost like giving them an extra level or something, right? Yeah.
It is. And now they'll be able to buy a few more enhancements and be ready for the next thing.
I bought a bigger weapon. So
yes. Yes. So the weapons are so generic. I love this. They're flexible, but they're generic. You get small blade, medium blade, large blade, or small blunt, medium blunt, or large blade.
That's as generic as you can get. I love it.
It could have just been blunt and sharp.
I loved imagining them walking around with a medium blunt, and that amused me to no end. Similar to the Black Hack, this system, it's not robust. It's even smaller than the Black Hack, and it really depends on GM rulings on the fly, kibitzing to make things work.
Sure, yeah.
It's got a bare bones system, enough to get stuff done, get in and go. And if you're cool with that, which is I feel, it's kind of OSR-y.
It's a bit of an OSR thing, yeah.
Yeah, rulings, not rules. I was cool with it, and I just, like we talked about with Black Hack, I said, okay, we're going to call his try. I got faith in this group, and we'll make it work, even if I feel a little like... wiggly about how I'm going to make this go. We're just going to jump in and go.
Right,
and
yeah.
All in all, the characters really sold it, right? The characters that were created for this game were fantastic. And, I could read Shadowrunning novels about these folks, so...
Cool. I mean, it sounds like you guys had a good time, and it's only $1, so it's an easy sell, right? I mean...
Right,
easy,
right. I've got up in my... I'm going back. I've already bought, 3 more pieces from the Cybernetica system.
Oh, okay,
I'm going to
cool.
check out the Black Hack one.
Awesome. We'll include a link in the show notes.
Yay.
Sweet. Is there anything else you want to say about tweaks?
No, I may end up mentioning it after the second session as well. I'm excited to see how things end up for these rascals.
Awesome.
Rascals.
I love seeing all these treasures, frankly, of your sale scouring, all that time you put into it. It's good.
We're about to talk to about
another one.
Sale
I know.
scour
Yeah,
treasure.
that's what I was led to believe. So yesterday, the Story Game Sunday crowd played Orc Hospital. It was myself and Dan and David and a new guy named Mike, who was really cool. He did a good job. So Orc Hospital, like Rich just mentioned, this was, I guess you recommended it to Dan because it's something you found on the sale. Is that right? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
It was a good recommendation. It was awesome. The game was really fun. The premise, it's by Jim Pinto, and it uses his Protocol story game system. I think he has a bunch of games that he's released that are basically just this identical system, but with a different skin or whatever. And Orc Hospital.
Hundreds.
Yeah, like a lot. That's what I was led to believe. It was like a bunch. It's solid, though. It works. So Orc Hospital, so it's a really great premise. You are doing like an ER or Grey's Anatomy style hospital drama, but everybody who works in the hospital is like an orc or an ogre or a goblin, or there's like monster shit going on. Okay. It's a really, really goofy gonzo premise. The gameplay involves you know, after you set up your characters and you use some cards to kind of set up your characters, these little tables, you draw some more cards every time it's your turn to be the director of a scene. You draw some cards to determine like what type of scene you're going to have, some elements that are going to be in the scene, and like where the location of the scene is going to be. There are 4 different scene types. I'm led to believe that this is like the core of the Protocol system.
Uh-huh.
There are vignettes, interludes, interrogation scenes, and ensembles. They're just what they sound like, basically. A vignette is kind of just a dictated scene with no RP. An interlude is just a scene between 2 characters. An interrogation, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But the other scene is called ensemble, which is basically just a scene with everybody, like all the main characters are in the scene. things I liked in this game. I liked a lot about this game. We had so much fun with it. The setting is just like really, really fun. It's very easy to get into because we've all seen hospital dramas. And surprisingly, like, I was really amazed by how easily everybody at the table was able to summon up like the tropes of the hospital drama, you know, like that actually came really easily to everyone. So that was really, really fun. And everyone also knows fantasy stuff, right? So you kind of combine those two things and you have there's a lot of like, everybody had a lot of stuff in their archive to basically pull from to make like fun, you know, parody scenes. You know, it was pretty good. Some examples of a few cute things we had going on. We had like the classic like will they won't they romance going on between a nurse goblin who also had a drug problem, a nurse goblin and an ogre surgeon, except there was like this misunderstanding between the two of them, and the ogre like actually wanted to eat the goblin, and so like, but they would have these like scenes that were like filled with like romantic tension and pauses, but there was like a clear misunderstanding like between like what they were trying to arrange, you know. So that's pretty great. We had a scene that was like a free zombie clinic that the hospital ran once a month, and so the zombies wandered in, and you know, we checked their chest cavities for built up embalming fluids, and we had one of the players, Mike, he had this really great like on the fly like questionnaire that we asked each zombie as they came through, and the first one was, do you acknowledge that in fact the power of Christ does not compel you? Okay, great, thank you. You know, and like just stuff like that. You know, some of them came in like the zombies got turned accidentally, and so we had to go unturn them. Anyway, lots of little cute little stuff like that. You know, just playing with the fantasy tropes combined with the hospital drama tropes was really, really fun. We had like kind of a running gag throughout the whole thing that was that like it was pretty obvious that none of the characters like actually understood what a hospital was for, you know. like we had all the trappings of a hospital, but like no one really understood like what we were supposed to be doing, and so that was kind of a little fun joke. So anyway, the setting is super fun. The interrogation scenes though were quite cool. So these interrogation scenes, I've never seen anything like it, frankly. Like it was, I've played a lot of games and I had not experienced anything like this before. This was to me, this felt very novel. The idea is, if you're the director of the interrogation scene, you choose one other character who is the focus of that scene, and you ask them 5 questions. You can ask the questions either in character, like in a scene, like with a character having a scene with the focus character, and your character just asks them in character these 5 questions, and they have to respond. Or you can ask just out of character, and the character's just like in a scene by themselves, still answering the questions in character, and so. It's strange, but it's really cool. So like the first time we did it, my ogre surgeon was in the morgue, like having just botched a surgery. I was supposed to, I used the wrong tool. I used a battle axe to like basically cleave someone's skull open, and it was a big mess. And so I was feeling like, like I was going to be reprimanded or whatever. And so I'm in the morgue, feeling really like conflicted about, not being able to do my job well. And so the director starts asking these questions, and it's like, well, what do you do to deal with the stress of the situation? And so I just narrate, like, rather than just answering it directly, I narrate my character leaning up against the wall, going into his lab coat, and instead of pulling out a flask, it's like a whole barrel, because he's an ogre, right? He pulls out a barrel and has a drink or whatever. And the next question is like, well, anyway, he would ask the questions and I would just like answer them like in the scene, and it felt really cool. Like it felt very cinematic. Mm-hmm. It felt like we were watching it happen on screen, and I really liked it. We had several of those interrogation scenes, and they were always really fun.
Before the Storm from that Seven Kingdoms or Seven Wonders Pelgrane book has a thing where it's all about, you ask a question of a character and then we go into flashback and they have to answer that. And I love that kind of thing. It's really cool.
It's neat. Yeah, it's really neat. And we found that the interrogation scenes especially, the setting of the game, this Orc Hospital, it lends itself to some gonzo sort of play, right? It's unavoidable, and we're all just like doing our best to like have like, to mash up the fantasy tropes with the hospital tropes. Like we're doing our best to do that. But the interrogation scenes though had the power of really, really focusing the story, and like, the answers to the questions would often lead the story to interesting places. And so it helped create this like drama within what would otherwise be kind of like a gonzo setup. And I think that gave it some legs. Anyway, the game was super fun. We were like laughing and cheering, like, as you know, probably as much as I have in a game this year. It was so great. There were some scenes that were very touching, surprisingly touching, mixed with some really gross gonzo stuff. It was great. Good fun. Orc Hospital.
I wonder if that would be a way to handle, you know how people always talk about wanting to do off-screen things with showing what the villains are doing or what NPCs are doing when things are going on. Yeah, if you could do that, give the players a chance to
that's good.
ask and illustrate. Neat.
Yeah, that's a cool idea. Yeah, it felt so fresh. You know, I feel like at a certain point you've seen everything, but like I hadn't. Like this felt really, really fresh. These interrogation scenes did. So I highly recommend it. Orc Hospital is super cool. And that's all I had to say about it. So let's go to Giving Me Life. It's Giving Me Life. Rich, what's giving you life?
What's giving me life this past week is that on a lazy Sunday afternoon, we had to cancel a game, and that was sad. I missed out on a Monster of the Week, which is on the ladder of insanity.
Of course.
I sat down with my son, my 10-year-old son. Normally, Sundays is me playing RPG and him playing video games. He was free, I was free, and we mainlined back and forth episodes of Young Justice, which I'm a big fan of on Netflix. He had never seen it, so I shared that with him. And the newest version that came out late last year of Danger Mouse.
Oh, yeah.
You guys ever heard of Danger Mouse?
I kind of know it. Like the old cartoon?
Watch that on Nickelodeon.
Yes, the one from the 80s that was a BBC
I know
animated.
that one, yeah.
It was the first kind of British animated import, came to Nickelodeon. I was a pretty big fan. This came out again last year, and then Netflix got the rights to broadcast the episodes. It's surprisingly good. It has all of the trappings of the old series, slightly better animation. Lena Headey plays Jeopardy Mouse.
Love her.
Who's
good.
Danger Mouse, who is an animated mouse, like small. Well, he's not small. Like, it's an anthropomorphic world, but he is a secret agent. But he's not very secret because he's got like Danger Mouse cereal, and the like. There are no puns that they will walk away from. So you know I love it. It's very funny, slapdash, wacky. It's a great fun time, and episodes are only 12 minutes apiece, so you can burn through them really quick. And I really enjoyed watching.
Cool, awesome. Lowell, what's giving you life?
One of the things about me is I do love mysteries, but a really narrow set of them. I love foreign police procedurals and foreign cozy mysteries. It's really weird. I don't know why, and because I never figure them out. I mean, I can watch Midsummer Murders, and I will never know until the final scene what's going on.
Okay, yeah.
But there's an anime called Detective Conan, and the latest season of it, it's been on for 20 years. It's 20 seasons. The latest season is on Crunchyroll. We just signed up for that, and I binge this thing. It's a dumb, like locked room mystery anime with this high school detective who gets shrunk down, so he looks like a grade schooler, and he's trying to hide out from this evil crime organization, and it's been going on for 20 years, so there's all this backstory and crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And so every episode, I mean, is one of those classic, well, go and figure it out in the locked room solution, you know, and it's one or two episodes usually for a story, and there's a little bit of back thing and character going on, and I don't know why. I love it.
Awesome.
I never figure it out, but it's goofy, dumb fun. It's gentle, but has some clever twists. So weird.
I want to express some disappointment at your Giving Me Life because I saw the notes and I read your notes, Detective Conan, and I'm really bummed out that this is not some like Conan detective thing that I wasn't aware of, like Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah, that was what I originally, when I first heard of it, thought it was, because it's actually called Case Closed in the States, but it's called Detective Conan in Japan. And it's from Arthur Conan Doyle.
Okay,
when I saw that, I was like,
yeah.
"Oh,
that's cool too, I guess."
I was with Jason on this coming in. I expected this would be some Rachel Kahn.
Yeah, the Rachel Kahn thing. Yeah. I thought it was gonna be like
that's
that.
what I was thinking this was about.
My Give Me Life, longtime listeners of The Gauntlet know that I am a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. It is like destination viewing for my partner and I. It's the only thing we like watch like as it's coming out every week, you know. And right now we're in the middle of they're in the middle of RuPaul's Drag Race All Stars season 2, and this show just gets better and better. I'm not even kidding. Like, we were worried that like as the show goes on, because it's including All Stars, it's got like 10 seasons now or something, and like you would think it would start to like taper off, like the formula would wear off, but it's not. Like the production's getting smarter, like the characters are they're getting better at like understanding how to be good on screen, and like it's just great. It's really, really good. And RuPaul finally won an Emmy for Best Reality TV Show Host, and so
awesome.
Yeah, so he's
awesome.
been never nominated, and a lot of people thought he should have been a long time ago, but he finally got nominated and he finally won. So and it's well deserved because the show is very, very good. It's like TV that like not many people know about or watch, but it really should be. Like, it's kind of a sleeper hit thing, in my opinion. And I think that's our show. Listeners, I recommend you go to our website if you would like to get in touch with us. On that website, you will find links to our other podcasts, as well as our G Plus community and our meetup, including Gauntlet Hangouts, where Rich and Lowell, myself, and a number of other people run games. What do you guys have coming up on Gauntlet Hangouts? Rich?
Well, I have tweaks, and next month, because it's October, the Gauntlet City Limits will be running Don't Rest Your Head.
Nice, good.
That's awesome.
Excited about that one. And then in October on Saturday morning cartoons, the Alt Channel, CBS, we're doing Apocalypse World 2nd Edition. I'm very excited about that.
Sweet. Yeah, a lot of people. I know it filled up in like 2 minutes. So like, yeah,
it was pretty quick.
Like,
yeah,
but hey, there's a wait list.
About that.
You know?
Yeah. Lowell, what are you going to be running on Gauntlet Hangouts coming up?
So I'm going to do City of Mist, this new superhero noir PBTA game that I'm curious about, and I've got a couple of other oddball PBTA games that I want to try as well, like Fellowship and a couple of other things.
Hot. I can't wait to see how that goes.
Yeah.
I don't remember what's on my calendar. It's amazing.
Let me guess
though.
for you, Dungeon World.
Oh, Dungeon World. Yeah, Dungeon World's a safe bet.
Maybe.
Other things I'm sure too. So go check that out, listeners. We're also on. We're on the Gauntlet's on Twitter at Gauntlet RPG. Rich can be found on Twitter at Orklord, ORKLORD. And Lowell, you're on Twitter, and you also blog at Age of Ravens, right?
Yep.
What's your Twitter handle?
At EDIGE23.
Awesome. Cool. That's our show. Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lowell.
Always a pleasure.
And thanks, listeners. Take care.
Back. Nobody could say that Jason doesn't take feedback.
Ouch! Yeah.
My foot into the table.
Did we get a stinger?
No.
A literal stinger?
Maybe.